Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Antique Automotive Acres from here in somewhere in southeast Michigan where the future of the car is not today. We're filming from a slightly different location. This is my garage. There's been some developments in the shop. Don't know if you might have seen it on my Instagram post at Antique Automotive Acres, but I did get a new 4-post lift installed in the shop, which will be handy for working on some of these cars which aren't really suited for 2-post lifts, and also help with a little bit of storage space. I was a little floor space X and Y limited, so the only solution was to go up or in the Z axis. So as part of that, I needed to move Hazel, my 1906 Rio Model B, out of the shop. Now, in a unique development, again, living here somewhere in southeast Michigan, we're into what I like to call the spring of deception or mud season. The ground leading up to the shop has gotten very, very soft, and I'll put a picture in so you can get an idea, especially with the truck coming in to deliver the lift for the guys to come in and assemble it. The mud is pretty thick, and I wasn't ready to move Hazel back into the shop to film this introduction because it is time. We've finally arrived. I'm going to start this car in this video. I know I've been stringing it along for a bit, but this is the video where you hear that one-cylinder roar into life. And for those folks who would comment about the fact that roads were often mud back in the day, which they were, this car has very smooth white tires on it, which is what it would have had originally, and a solution for traction problems at the time was to wrap the tires with rope. I'm fresh out of rope, so in reality I just didn't want to really get the car that dirty driving through the mud. So here we are for the introduction. Like I said, it is time for that start, to hear that engine run. So before we go ahead and move into that video, which if you don't recall has been something I videoed a while back, you can tell the bow tie is different. We've gone through a lot of prep work to get the car ready to run, including putting the body back together. We learned it is all wood, although not all wood. This here, the false French front, is actually metal, just to help clarify a little bit more of the details of the car. And one more thing before we get into the start video, I want to give a little bit of a plug for a friend of mine, Dean Beatty, who runs the Car Scene with Dean podcast. I was very honored, and it was my pleasure to be on the podcast with Dean about a week ago. Check your local listings and timing of when you actually watch this video. But it's an excellent podcast covering a lot about the car scene here in southeast Michigan. A lot of things going on. Dean and his wife Peggy do a great job of putting that podcast together. I'm episode number 4, and I'd highly encourage everyone who's interested in antique cars of any sort to go give that podcast a listen. Follow him on, I know it's on Spotify or where else you might get your podcasts at. It's just a really good time, and he's building up and bringing a lot more interesting people into the fold as he's putting that podcast together. So again, Car Scene with Dean. You can find that wherever you find your podcast material. So with that, I think it's time. Let's go ahead and get things started. Okay, I've deployed the handheld camera just to bring you guys in because it's a little cramped inside and my back would be to the camera, and at least you get to see what you have to do to start this 1906 Rio Model B. So we've topped it up with gasoline, we've topped it up with water. Step number 1 is to crack the garage door open. so that I don't gas myself. So we'll go ahead and don't have to open it all the way. It's cold here in Michigan today, so we'll do about that high. You can see that, like I said, semi-frozen, snowbound tundra of Michigan, southeast Michigan that is. So, step one is to turn the gas on this car. It has a shut-off valve. A lot of these old cars have shut-off valves because the carburetor needle seat technology wasn't that great back in the day, and if you don't turn the gas off, it'll dribble gas out on the floor like I did when I filled it up. Now, you'll see very briefly in a moment why I'm not that concerned about a little bit of gas on the floor. But on this car, on original cars, non-restored, it would have come out somewhere through the radiator here. When these cars tend to be restored, people don't like putting metal objects through their very expensive radiators, so they tend to convert it to what this car has, which is a shut-off down low. So you can see that little lever there and the valve, and you just turn that lever so that the gas valve is open. Now, we're going to cheat for the first start. Next start, we'll go ahead and do the hand crank. So let me grab the light so you can see what I'm doing. So, on this car, there's no oil in the sump. It's a dry sump car, like a race car. Not really. There's a main oiler that lives on top that oils the piston, and then the oil works its way out and down and splashes around and lubricates the connecting rods and the main bearings. Actually, the main bearings on this car were retrofitted to have these little grease cups on them. It's these guys right here. These provide lubrication to the main bearings on each side of the engine, and then there's actually one in the body. There's a body-mounted bearing on these you need to lubricate as well. But step number one in getting your 1906 Rio started, turn your oil on. That's this guy right here. You flip this up, and I'll see if I can bring you in. Not sure you're going to be able to see that, but it'll drip oil into the engine, and they usually say about 10 to 15 drips a minute. So, step one, done. Step two, retard your ignition timing. That's this control here. Advances all the way up. Retarded is down, and that's just to retarded means it's firing late. It's firing after top dead center. It's the technical timing term. Step three, flood your carburetor. These carburetors don't have chokes, so there's a button on top that you push down and you flood it so gasoline drips on the ground. That's to verify you've got a very rich fuel mixture going in to make it easy to start. Now, step four, turn your ignition to the on position. And step five, well, technically you would prime the engine with a hand crank. I'm going to cheat and use the starter. So step five, push the starter button. Oh, step five, give it a little bit of air, open the throttle up. That's just so it's got enough air to actually start on the rich mixture. And then step six, cheat and use your start button, like such. And there we have it. Advance your timing. You can hear the RPM pick up as the timing advances. It's firing more efficiently on that fuel. Now, for this flush process, this has to run. Close your throttle down a notch because it's starting to get a little high RPM. For this flush process, you have to run it for about 10 or 15 minutes just to get things good and warm. So I'll come back to you when it comes time to drain this thing out. Hey, back again. So it's been a couple minutes. It's cooling off some, but I figured I would go ahead and crack the valve open. And what's coming out of there, I thought I would share with you, ladies and gentlemen, so you get an idea how gross the inside of this cooling system was. That brown sludge is what got flushed out of the system. That's why you do these things. It's also why you really shouldn't let your car sit for so long with glycol in it. Glycol does break down, glycol being just regular antifreeze, really. It'll break down after time and can corrode things. It develops acids that start eating parts of your cooling system. It's a bad deal. And when it sits for a long time, it just starts eating parts alive. So if you're going to park a car for a while, do the right thing, drain it out. There's prep procedures to help make sure nothing rusts, especially with cast iron engines and things like that. But you know, go through like a flush process like this when you drain it for a long time to sit. Otherwise, that coolant just breaks down and excuse me, turns into a real nasty stuff, as you can see here. So this is draining out from the tank inside. I did crack the fitting on top, so it'll drain out. One thing with these, that's kind of unique to these Reos, once you've drained the front out of coolant, there's one more thing you have to drain. There's another petcock on the side. That's the water pump side of things. That's the other low point of the system. Then you want to make sure you drain it out so that you get everything out of there. So that's next after this finishes draining out. So once it's all drained out, like I said, I'll top it up with water, and then we'll go through another start procedure to finish this coolant flush out. See you in a bit. Well, there you have it, folks. Hazel, my 1906 Rio Model B does run. I know I've been stringing it along through a couple videos, but that one cylinder roared right into life, ready to make 8 horsepower to help move Hazel down the road. We got through that flush process. You could see the sludge and the gunk that got cleaned out of the system. And what I want to touch upon a little bit is glycol takes, when I say it takes time in the video for glycol to break down, it takes years to break down. So this car had sat for a very long time with glycol, essentially improperly stored, which caused that glycol to degrade and cause the issues you saw that I had to flush and clean the system out. Coming up, we'll have to do a rinse process just to get the last of those chemicals out of there before we top the radiator up with water and the no erosion to help keep the system clean for a long time. And I have to run the car again, so the next video you'll see me do the hand crank start procedure. And a bit of a spoiler, it's not as easy as pushing a button to get this car to start over with the hand crank. In the meantime, if you liked what you saw, maybe feel free to give my channel a subscription. Go ahead and push that little bell icon there. It at least lets you know that when the next video comes up. I think it also does something for the analytics on the YouTube black magic side of things. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to put them down in the comment window below. I make an effort to go through and read them, take your feedback, and also try to answer any questions that might come up. Also, like I said at the beginning of the video, I just want to give another plug for my friend Dean and his podcast, Car Scene with Dean. It's available wherever you can find podcasts out there. I know I found it on Spotify. I'm episode number 4, but he's got some other great episodes already recorded, and he's already got a lineup of people coming in with really interesting stories about the car scene here in southeastern Michigan. So with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. It's been my pleasure, and we'll see you in the next video.